For the small room in my workshop, I need some kind of desk or working table. Here I would like to do small tasks which I prefer to do while sitting, for example soldering and electric handicrafts, but also writing notes and make plans. The table will be about 3 meters long and 80 centimeters deep. It should have 6 legs carrying a frame on which a 30mm multiplex board is screwed. The standard height of desks is 70 centimeters. I use that as a rough guide. In my apartment I have a height adjustable desk which I have additionally adjusted as I personally like it best and then measured out the height. So I get to 73 centimeters. The construction should consist of a base frame on which the top rests. For this I will put a few bars on top and insert them into the legs. This construction should be stable and relatively easy to produce. I still had a few beams they used to carry a loft bed, now they will be reutilized. I cut them to the right length to serve as legs, so 70 centimeters. As usual, I first softened the edges with sandpaper and then additionally chamfered the underside. If you cut them off straight, such legs would splinter and tear even at small impact. A small bevel prevents this. For the frame I have these 3 buttons. One of them I divide into 3 shorter pieces. And also the long pieces I have shortened somewhat, so that I come to a length of 2.8 meters. The pieces will be connected in this way later. For this I want to use a cross slab. The slats have to be cut off by half their thickness to be able to interlock flush with each other. I marked the necessary cuts. The short slats I have joined beforehand. I made the cuts by hand with a Ryoba Japanese saw. Actually, I would not recommend such a saw for it. It has no back and therefore wobbles back and forth. This is good and necessary for some cuts, but here it causes the cut to be not quite straight and to be slightly wider at the beginning and the end than in the middle. A saw with a back would be better suited, but I didn't have one at the time. Then I chiseled out the parts. I first roughly knock out the majority and then approach the marking in increasingly smaller steps. I did the same with the longer slats, even though they were a bit more awkward to clamp. Making the connections by hand is fun, but I wanted to make the slots for the legs by using a machine. Therefore, I built myself a small jig for my table saw. I found a template for it on the German YouTube channel Günthers Werkstatt, formerly Alles ohne Kabel, which means everything without a cable. So the idea didn't come from me. The jig sits on the fence of the circular saw and holds workpieces in position with a toggle clamp. The toggle clamps can be adjusted to different wide workpieces or even adjust themselves to a certain extent. Those beams can be clamped vertically and guided safely through the saw blade. As the frame is supposed to sit completely in the legs later on, I drive the saw blade out by the bending thickness of the frame. Then I cut the legs crosswise. With the fence you can adjust the position of the cut and thus hollow out the slots for the connection. I thought it would be faster not to saw out everything but just about half and then chisel out the rest. A little additionally trimming is certainly necessary anyway. First I roughly broke out the remains, then knocked them out, then chiseled them out. This worked best, especially if you always work from the outside to the inside, so there is no tearing. It didn't fit right away, so a bit of fine-tuning is necessary as already thought. But then it fits exactly. Now that all parts are finished, I can put everything together for a try. This black plate is a remnant which was delivered as packaging material to my work. I rescued it from the trash and want to use it as a cover plate for the multiplex. So now the table was almost finished. And then I haven't touched it in 3 months. You may notice when you have already progressed so far with a project that in your mind you have already finished it, and therefore in reality you don't finish it anymore. At least it has often happened to me that I have left things out in the cold shortly before completion. Let it be video games that you almost finished, music that you write, or doing your taxes, which I also still have to do. Anyway, that's why we're jumping from January to April now. When I turned to the project again, I found that the frame was still a bit too wobbly and unstable. So I wanted to add some crossbars to connect the legs. Therefore, I saw a few slats out of a beam and bring them to the required dimensions. I want to insert the crossbars with a concealed offset tenon. I cut out most of the tenons with the machine. First I saw a revolving groove into the buttons. Then I use again my jig to set off the tenon's thickness. The last protruding pieces then I cut off by hand and fine-tuned everything a bit with a chisel. I then took the frame apart again to mark the slots on the legs. Then I chiseled out the slots by hand. The marking must be very accurate. If it's already inaccurate during marking, the actual chiseling cannot be precise either. Therefore I used the marking angle I built last time. With it I can mark down exactly to 0.5 millimeter. The slots should be of course in the middle of the beam and about 15 centimeters offset downwards. When chiseling out the mortises, I first slightly break the contours in order to cut the outermost wood fibers so they cannot tear. Then I start in the middle of the mortise and work my way outwards. I always remove thin layers and work my way into the wood until I reach the depth of the tenon. At the edge I cut through the uppermost wood fibers again after each layer, so the mortise becomes straight at the sides and leads vertically into the wood. Then I could start gluing. First I always connect two legs with a crossbeam. Then I glued the frame. I let the whole thing dry for 1 to 2 hours and then glued on the legs. After that was dry too, I tried the stunt of lifting the multiplex blade onto the frame and pushing it into position. I ordered the multiplex board at my company and cut it there to size. In the full-grown wood workshop, you can handle such large panels much better than in a smaller workshop at home. It is 80 centimeters deep and 3 meters long. It's really difficult to move such a thing all on your own. I tried to get by with small casters, which only worked so good, but a few saw horses are absolutely vital. The table didn't quite fit into the corner, so the top had to be removed again. The frame bumped against one of the metal beams sticking out of the wall, so a notch had to be cut out there. Then the plate can be put back on the frame and finally be screwed in place. So I pre-drilled from below, countersunk the holes and inserted screws. Now I was faced with the problem that the room, unlike the tabletop, is not rectangular. Therefore, the corner was still opened. I wanted to cover this hole with a black top plate, which had to be cut to fit. So I transferred the angle in the corner of the room to the plate with a sliding bevel and shortened it with a circular saw. And then I had to learn the hard way that it's a really stupid idea to put the camera tripod too close to the work. Fortunately, nothing happened except a solid adrenaline rush for me, but the camera is fine. I would really like to show you how it all looked from the perspective of this camera, which actually had everything perfectly in view, but apparently it only recorded strange flickering next to the audio, maybe to protest against my treatment of the other camera. But at least the cut was right and the hole in the corner was covered. For an absolutely solid base, I connected the frame to the wall and then screwed the cover plate onto the multiplex from above. And then the table is finally completed.